anyone less comfortable than Yasser
Yeah.
Qadi when that issue came up.
You know what? There's a hilarious parody that some ex-Muslim did, and he does like a really funny Yasser Qadhi impression. And I don't know if you've seen it before, but there's a hilarious parody of the interview. And I'm not sure who does it, but I could probably find it. I don't know if you
Who's
know
that?
what
Is
I'm
that the same guy that does Zakir Naik?
like. Zach or not? Yeah, that's that guy. Yeah,
Ah, gosh, I normally know his name. My brain is just really fried right now. Who is
yeah.
that
I
guy?
know some
Who
of the
is that
chat
guy, guys?
will.
I know
Yeah,
everyone
so
else will know him instantly because we've all seen
yeah,
him a bunch of times. Yeah,
yeah.
he does
He's
hilarious
funny.
impressions.
So yeah, so Muhammad is hijab is pressing him, and Yasser Qadi is he actually says to Muhammad hijab, he's like he basically tells him, and we just covered this in the stream today, but he says I could do what's called Tawriya, which is Islamic kind of version of lying. He says I can do this on you. I can basically lie to you. He's imagine it like I always think it's like if you have an interview, like if you had an interview and it was like a Christian, and you had a Christian like a New Testament scholar saying, hey, you know what? I could lie to you about this if I wanted to. Like, it's like, this is crazy. So you have a Muslim scholar here saying, I could lie to you about these issues, but I want to tell you some of my views here. And he says some things about the preservation of the Quran that are very shocking. Like, for example, he said, what would your Quran look like if it basically if I had you to like a blank piece of paper, what would you write on it? And he basically was like, that's not an easy yes or no question. I can't answer that, in simple um this is like something that is going to require you to take my class. You have to be an advanced student, blah 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 blah,
And
and eventually, yeah,
oh no, I just wanted to point out, like, if you didn't know, if you were a Muslim watching that and you didn't know anything else except Yasser Qadi saying that if you had a blank mushaf and you had to put down what was revealed to Muhammad, and he says that's not an easy question, man. Like, if
yeah,
you given the story that every Muslim heard for years about perfect preservation right down to the letter, yeah, it should be
yep,
it would be a little time consuming, but it wouldn't be difficult at all, right? I mean,
right,
the story that we hear from Muslims, oh, every Muslim in the world, and there are millions of Muslims, they all got the Quran perfectly memorized. We all have the same Qurans. Like, oh, okay, well, that should be a really easy task then to show us exactly what was revealed to Muhammad. And then Yasser Qadi saying, this is really, really hard.
yeah,
That should give you if you didn't listen to anything else he said, that should give you enough information to go, wait a minute. If it's difficult, then I've been lied to, because based on what I've been told, this should be the easiest thing in history. If there's only one
yep,
Quran and you want to know what the one Quran says, that should be the easiest thing ever. The fact that he's going, no, 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 this is really, really bad. And you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when Zayd ibn Thabit was told to put down the
oh yeah,
Quran, and he said, you could have asked me to move a mountain from here. That's how bad it was. It's like, wait a
yeah,
minute, based on the story, this should be really, really easy. And so all of this that's what I mean. I don't understand how this isn't a much bigger problem for the Dawa fans, right? I mean, just imagine, if we were, we believe in the resurrection. Imagine like Christian scholars start saying, oh, we have no idea if Jesus rose from the dead and there's nothing to go on and we don't know. And so we have to keep this quiet. We can't talk about this in public. We can't talk about this in public, that we have no idea whether Jesus died or rose from the dead. You'd be like, wait, what?
yeah,
That's been like foundational to our faith, and you're saying you don't actually know, and that you want to keep us in a state of ignorance. If something like that happened, I would assume a bunch of Christians go, wait, what's going on? What's this? And at the very least, well, if you're saying that you guys somehow know Jesus didn't rise from the dead, but you've been telling us he rose from the dead, and you have all this evidence, what have you guys been lying to us this entire time? Are you guys a bunch of liars? These are the issues that would arise in Islam. These guys come out, oh yeah, so, and Yasser Qadi was actually breaking it down, like, okay, you got people don't know anything. Then you become a student of knowledge, and then you find out, whoa, what's all this stuff? What is all this stuff? Issues. And he said about the non-Muslim academics who contradict the Muslim scholars, he said, and we know they're right. We know they're
yeah,
right because they're quoting our sources to us. And so this is just like layer upon layer upon layer of admissions And I mean, how any Muslim trusted Dawa from that point on is like beyond me. I mean, it's like we grew up hearing the story of the boy who cried wolf. This kid, he keeps coming out and lying until he comes out and he's actually telling the truth one day. And no one believes him because, like, wait, we've caught you lying repeatedly. We're not interested, dude. And that's what I don't get about the Dawa fans. It's like their guys lie to them, the lie gets exposed. Then their guys lie to them again, and then the lie gets exposed, and then they lie to them again. And no matter how many times the Dawa guys could lie to their fans 100,000 times in a row, those same fans would go right back to those same Dawa guys for an answer to the next objection to Islam. Absolutely, absolutely amazing. Anyway, my point there was this goes back to the beginning of Islam. There was all this confusion back then. There's the confusion now. The difference is Muslim scholars over the centuries realize we need to lie to people about this. We need to lie to the regular people who don't understand the issues that we're dealing with. We need to lie to them. And then, so they spent a long time lying to them. There is no problem. And then all of a sudden we get to the age of the internet. We get to Fareed leaking private emails, and the issue rises to the surface again, and the lies are exposed, and these are good times. I did want to point out, yes, people have pointed out, it was Vidu Vids. Remember him?
Oh, yes.
Vidu Vids. I think that's the guy you're talking about there. Okay, so Vidu Vids, guys, check it out. Does great impressions. Zakir Naik, Yasser Qadi, all those guys. All right, back to you, Jai. What were your takeaways from that big discussion?
Yeah, so that was a hilarious parody that guy did. And yeah, so one of the major takeaways was that he was basically asking Muhammad Hijab, he's like, rhetorically, he's asking him, whatever you ask me to reproduce for you, like you give me a blank like book and you ask me to write the Quran on it, you have to ask the question, is that how it was in early Medina? And that's another one that's like shocking, because that's what you hear from Muslims all the time, that the Quran they recite today is exactly as Muhammad recited it, word for word, letter for letter, exactly how you pronounce it, down to like the very syllable. And so he's like, is that how it was in early Medina? And then he basically gets him, he kind of almost, Muhammad Hijab almost kind of pins him to an answer where he's like, it's going to be a combination of different qira'at. It's not going to be just Hafs. It's not going to be just this, not going to be just that. It's going to be like some here, some there. And if you guys check out the stream that we did with David before, you'll see some of the earlier Muslim opinions on these different Qurans, different readings. They were kind of similar to that. They were like, yeah, this one is correct, this one is wrong, this one's better than that one, this one's more correct than that one. And so they kind of would like, pick and choose which ones they liked based on different reasons. And Yasser Qadi, he likens himself to the classical scholars. Even Muhammad Hijab did during the interview. He said to him, that's kind of like how the classical scholars thought of it too. And so that was huge. That was really huge. And the impact of it was even bigger than I think anyone could ever imagine. So I knew right away that these interviews weren't going to last. So of course, we did, and I'm sure many others did. I'm sure you did.
Yeah, we were all downloading like crazy. we knew that was coming down, and then it did. I forget who. First, they started silencing comments because Muslims were going, "This is destroying my faith. Well, you guys were lying," and then so they're like hiding comments. And then I think one of them took that section out of the video, but left the video up, and then one just completely took it down. Then eventually the other took it down, and then Yasser Qadi started giving fake copyright strikes to anyone who was posting clips of it and stuff like that. And then he was doxing, he was doxing people because he was doxing people who challenged the fake copyright strike. And it was just amazing. It's like watching a guy just completely melt down, because that's Yasser Qadi, right? He's scholarly level. Yeah. He does academic work. He knows what fair use is. He knows he's allowed to take the words of someone else and share them and comment on them. He knows that. But he was posting deliberately fake copyright strikes and then doxing people, going like full jihad, I'm threatening you mode. And just watching a guy who's always portrayed himself as this scholar, and I'm a scholar, I'm an academic, I'm an academic, and this is at the academic level, and just to watch him completely implode, and greatest freak out ever. And yeah, I mean, just imagine. I mean, his dad was one of the guys who popularized. Mazhar Qazi is one of the guys who popularized the myth. It's a quote from his book. From the time it was revealed, there has not been one single letter of difference between any two Qurans in the entire history. So 14 centuries, there's not been one letter of difference between any two Qurans. His dad's one of the guys that popularized that nonsense. And then can you imagine, you're the guy, Yasser Qadi, you're the guy who's responsible for exposing your own dad as a liar and then exposing all the Muslim scholars and Dawah guys who've been lying about this for decades. You just expose them all as liars, and then you've got Muslims contacting you. Wait a minute, this is what gave us confidence in Islam. This has all been a lie. Can you imagine? No, I mean, the point is, I kind of get it. I kind of get what a panic mode he was sent into, because that is not, you wanted to be the guy who's like defending Islam, not the guy who's destroying it from within. Again, hats off to Muhammad Hijab, Fareed, Yasser Qadi for imploding that way and for helping us expose that lie. I did want to point, before you continue, I did want to point out one more thing, because after Yasser Qadi had that famous little saying, the standard narrative has holes in it. That's what I'm going to say. Lots of us use that as like the standard narrative about the perfect preservation of the Quran. Yeah. And so, hey, he's saying that the standard narrative about this perfect preservation, there are holes in the narrative. Whereas he was going beyond that. He was taking it for granted that there are all kinds of differences in the Quran. The standard narrative he was talking about was the standard narrative of people who actually know about these things, but who think that Muslim scholars can account for them in terms of ahruf and kirat and various explanations like this, how it all makes sense, and that this all goes back to Muhammad. That was the narrative he was saying that has holes in it. It's because that's a narrative that us Muslim scholars, we all tell ourselves, oh, yes, we can explain that with the kirat. And oh, yes, we can explain that with the ahruf. And we can explain this and we can explain that. And then he's talking about being challenged by non-Muslim academics. He says, and we know they're right. They're quoting our sources. So he's saying the standard narrative of even the Muslim scholars and the da'is and the students of knowledge, that narrative has holes in it. And it's basically, yeah, I still have to work on this, and maybe eventually I'll figure this out. But it's like, gosh, what a bunch of liars, lying liars from lying liar land on Liars Get In Free Day. That's Dawah. That's the Dawah carnival. All right. Oh, sorry about that. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, when you're giving your hats off to all the players, Farida and Mimi and all of them, hats off to Allah, because remember he planned all this, right? He's the best of
planners.
deceivers / planners. So he gave them all this ahruf, and then he planned all of it to come out.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine? It's like, hey, I revealed it in all these different ways, and then Uthman burns them all. Ooh, I'm gonna get back at him. And I told them to memorize it, and then they screw up and they come up with all these different kirat and so on. And then now they're all lying about what they did wrong. I will expose them for destroying my perfect book.
And so Yasser Qadi, he felt the heat from the Muslims after this, and he started talking about things like what he wants his legacy to be, like what he wants to be remembered for. And all everyone was saying was, yeah, you're going to be remembered for being, I don't know, he thinks it was a clarification, but he had some choice words for you, for Jay Smith, and others.
Ultra-crepidarian.
Yeah, ultra-crepidarian. Yeah.
Well, he called me. He went on a tirade against me. He's an evil, repugnant, disgusting, evil, vile jerk. That's one of the
Arabic terms, like, flowered throughout his speech. Some of them were technical as well, so he was like trying to, even for Muslims, probably like talk above their heads, but it was getting out because we were like, this is what he means here, this is what he's saying here. But really what he was getting at, like you said, is the relationship between this hadith about the ahruf and then the modern kind of Qurans that we have today. Like, how are they related? And that's what this presentation is about, like the relationship between those two, how Muslim scholars try to fix that problem, or how they, what ways do they reconcile these issues, and then we're going to pose some problems towards their views.
And as far when we're talking about Yasser Qadi now just being remembered for that one interview, all the stuff he said. I mean, that guy literally wrote the book on the sciences of the Quran. He's been going to conferences for a long, long time. And then this happens. It reminds me of how when anyone sees Will Smith now, all they remember is the slap, right? Now,
Oh yeah.
if you ask them to think about it, they'll, okay, I remember. Yeah, parents just don't understand, and
Mhm.
summertime, and okay, I remember the Fresh Prince of Bel Air,
Fresh
and all these movies, and all these great performances, and uh, but yeah, the first thing in anyone's mind now is that big slap, and so that's the
Exactly.
same thing with Yasser Qadi. He's got his slap at the Oscars moment, but it was on Muhammad Hijab's live stream. All right, so
Right.
I'll take a couple quick super chats and then we'll jump into your presentation. This is a
Right.
smaller screen. Let's see. Stop hiding AP. We know he's why you're late. That is true. That is true. We just got sick of waiting and went ahead and started without him. It's what we have to do. Uh, no, just kidding. Just kidding. This is you actually messaged me like in the morning and said you have a presentation that you wanted to go through
Yeah.
at some point, and I said we could do it today. So yeah, we just we went ahead and set this up.
Yep.
Let's see. Oh, no comment there. Then there are holes in the narrative of AP being late. Why is it not in?
Is different between like the chapter arrangements. The Quran today is like, you have like chapter 1 that's, short, and then you have it's, generally like longest, shortest. There's with some exception. And yeah, that who is responsible for that? That's not something that's like revealed. So how do they come up with that? And like I said, companions had different Qurans that had different, orders. I think Aisha was actually, there's a hadith where she's specifically asked about that, and she basically says like, why does it matter? What does it matter? Why does it matter why it's ordered, or something to
Yeah.
that effect? And
Well,
so yeah,
if one of your fundamental principles of interpreting your book is the doctrine of abrogation, where later revelations can abrogate earlier revelations, I'd say the order matters a whole lot.
yeah.
Seems like it matters a whole lot. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
wild
there's a
wild stuff.
difference of like the companions when they were putting the Quran together, like in Kitab al-Masahif, the book Masahif, they actually differed on what was the last verse of the Quran. Some said it was in Surah 9,
Yep.
and some said no, actually it's Surah 2, verse 281. So the numbering of the surahs, like Surah 2 and Surah 9, you'd think that would be the first revelation, but that's not the case. They actually forgot which verses were revealed when.
Yep. No, no.
Yeah.
Oh, they forgot quite a bit.
Yeah.
Pretty funny. All right, one more here. About four. Oh wait, no, there was one before that. Sorry. D Wood thinks one David plus one Jai plus one DOC equals 3, but we only see one Christian on the screen. Joking, good work, you all. And I got Mike Winger to say the word wingaling on the stream today. Well, it's not very hard to get Mike Winger to say the word wingaling. That's the derogatory term he uses for his fans. He refers to them as wingalings. And I mean, just think about this. It sounds like he's calling them dingalings. What kind of psycho talks about his own fans that way? I don't know. It's sick. It's sick and depraved. Anyway, all right, one more here. About 4 weeks from today, help celebrate International Apostasy Day. International Apostasy Day. This day creates an opportunity for those who have secretly left Islam to rally together with others, potentially making it safer for them to do so. 22nd of August. Hey, maybe we'll have a special, big special show with a bunch of apostates that day. That might be a good show. And cool. One more, good old American values. What's that?
Is that Daniel?
Oh, never mind. That's Daniel Hakikachu.
Yeah.
Don't know if you saw that, but he's basically arguing that since there are girls in high school who are cheerleaders, then that's the same thing as his prophet having sex with a prepubescent girl. So why is anyone complaining? We're all hypocrites. Nice.
Yeah, I remember that you did it with IP and AP. I thought that was
right.
Like right when you think Daniel can't get any worse, he just does it and gets worse.
Yeah. It's pretty awful and terrible. All right, so you ready to jump into your presentation?
Yeah, we're ready.
All right, I'm gonna pop that up on the screen.
Okay. All right. I don't know. I remember last time you were able to get your cell phone there as well, but I don't know if it's a different configuration with the system you're using now.
Wait,
But we can.
wait, what's that?
I was gonna say last time you were able to put yourself on a screen with it too.
Oh,
Your camera.
yeah.
But I
I
don't
don't
know
want
if
to.
it's a
I don't
different
want to try
configuration.
that right now because I'd have to. I'd have to mess with the settings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So in that
Because
case,
in
if I put on.
in other words, I barely got us on today because it's a totally new configuration.
Yeah.
So we'll just have this up there.
Okay, so in that case, is
Yep.
this good full
Yep.
screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, so we're just gonna kind of go through these issues between the relationship between the ahruf and qira'at, which are there's a hadith that we're gonna go over about the 7 ahruf, and then the qira'at, which are these modern different versions of the Quran in Arabic that we have today. And this is an issue that's faced, I say, by modern Muslim scholars, because if you guys check out some of the previous streams that we did with David, we show that Muslim classical scholars had completely different views on this topic and the relationship between ahruf and qira'at. So this is one of the famous hadiths on the topic. There are many, many hadith about the 7 ahruf, and I won't read the whole thing here, but just kind of paraphrase
No,
what's going
no,
on. But
no, 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 no. These hadiths are so important, especially this
oh,
one,
okay.
because I mean it completely destroys the standard narrative about the different ahruf in terms of the average Muslim. As soon as they find out about the ahruf, they're taught that these are just dialects and so on. So anyway, this is a very important hadith. So yeah, go ahead and
Oh yes,
go
so
ahead.
we'll read. Yeah, well, so we'll read this one. So basically, just before we read it, just like a comment before we read it is, the companions had this assumption that when they heard Muhammad reciting the Quran, that's just how it was recited. So you have like Muhammad teaches one companion, like let's say chapter 25 of the Quran, and that companion thinks, okay, that's chapter 25, that's it, there's no variations, no different versions. Muhammad said that's chapter 25, that's chapter 25. So that's like kind of the working assumption that basically the companions had. And so this hadith here, I have the link on sunnah.com, but this is in Al-Bukhari 7550, and this is the hadith here.
Okay, it says, narrated Umar ibn al-Khattab, he said, I heard Hisham ibn Hakim reciting Surah Al-Furqan during the lifetime of Allah's Messenger. I listened to his recitation and noticed that he was reciting in a way that Allah's Messenger had not taught me. I was about to jump over him while he was still in prayer, but I waited patiently, and when he finished his prayer, I put my sheet round his neck and pulled him and said,
Like a dog.
He's got like a leash on his neck.
who has taught you this surah which I have heard you reciting? Hisham said, Allah's Messenger taught it to me. I said, you are telling a lie,
Liar.
for he taught it to
Liar.
for he had taught it to me in a way different from the way you have recited it. Then I started dragged him to Allah's Messenger. and yes, and Allah's Messenger said, I have heard this man reciting Surah Al-Furqan in a way that you have not taught me. The Prophet said, O Omar, release him. Recite, O Hisham. Hisham recited in the way I heard him reciting. Allah's Messenger said, it was revealed like this. Then Allah's Messenger said, recite, O Omar. I recited in the way he had taught me. Whereupon he said, it was revealed like this. And added, the Quran has been revealed to be recited in 7 ahruf, so recite of it whichever is easier for you.
Yes.
Yeah, and you may be right about to go into some of the various problems, but I mean, we really need people to understand.
Yeah, this is like a foundational thing. Yeah.
This is so. I mean, think about the problems here, right? And think about what the obvious explanation for this is, and how silly Muhammad's response is. Because that's how it is in the Muslim sources. It's the same thing with like Muhammad's relationship with Zainab, and the explanation. Like the explanation you give sounds completely idiotic. All the hadiths where Muhammad gets caught in his house or behind a curtain with Diya al-Kalbi, and he says, "Oh yeah, that's the angel Gabriel." It's like, oh come on, are you joking? Are you joking? You think we're stupid enough to fall for that? Anyway, it's like that right here. Think about this, guys. So the explanation, which any Muslim now will just say, "Oh, that makes sense. It was revealed in 7 different ways." That's why these guys were reciting it in these different ways. Guys, you mean that Muhammad all along is revealing the Quran in 7 different ways, and this is the first they hear about it? This is a shock to Umar. Like, it's not until, in other words, it's after his companions realize that they're reciting the Quran in different ways, they go to Muhammad. Hey, Muhammad, I'm about to do something to this guy. He's reciting the Quran differently. Oh yeah, don't you know I've been revealing it in 7 different ways?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me, guys? What's the you guys just sort of learning how to learning what inference to the best explanation is. So what's the best explanation here? Is it Muhammad was revealing the Quran in 7 different ways, but no one knew about it until he had to tell them that he's been revealing it in 7 different ways because it was a secret somehow? Is that the best explanation, or is it a better explanation that Muhammad's memory wasn't perfect, that when he was reciting a passage to Hisham, he didn't remember it perfectly. It changed over time a little bit in his memory. So when he's teaching it to Hisham, he gets it a little bit differently. Umar, who memorized the earlier version, he doesn't know. He hears Hisham reciting it in a different way. And then they go to Muhammad, and Muhammad can't admit, okay, I got a problem. I must have changed it over time, but it's okay. I mean, I'm an old man, blah, blah, blah. No, but Muhammad can't admit that. And so instead it's, oh yes, Allah revealed it in all of these different ways. So that's one issue. The other issue is that these two guys are from the same, these guys are from the same tribe. So they speak the same dialect, and this doesn't work. Again, I don't know if you're going into any of that, but I wanted people to know that everyone, guys, this is, if you were to list like the top 20 hadiths that people need to know this one. This is a very important hadith because it exposes a bunch of lies that are being told.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, you're right. So that's one of the explanations Muslims will try to give and say, oh, these were just different dialects. But as you pointed out, and that's what Muslim scholars have been saying for centuries, that no, they're from the same tribe, so they spoke the same dialect. And what's interesting here is how the hadith ends. It says, so recite of it whichever is easy for you. Now that's going to come up later. That's really important. That's an important note. Now, there are multiple versions of this Ahruf story. Here's another one. This is one that Yasser Qadi mentions in his book here. And I'm just kind of quoting his book, Introduction to the Sciences of the Quran. And there's the page number, page 174. And there's the reference as well. It's in Sahih Muslim. So, and it's on sunnah.com. And so this is another kind of version of the explanation of the Ahruf. So this one is with Ubay. And I don't know if we want to read all of this one, but basically he heard 2 people reciting the Quran differently than how Muhammad taught him. And so they go to Muhammad, and he does the same thing again. He says, okay, Ubay, I want you to recite it. And he recites it. Okay, you recite it. Okay, they recite it. It was revealed that way. It was revealed that way. And then Ubay says, there occurred in my mind a sort of denial and doubt that did not even exist in the time of Jahiliyyah, which is before Islam. And then Islam Muhammad solves the problem. When the Messenger of Allah saw how I was affected, he struck my chest.
Hey, that's the same way. That's the same way he dealt with the problem of Aisha sneaking out of the house and lying to him about it.
Yeah, exactly. So this guy is getting all worried. And by the way, Yasser Qadi notes in the interview, and he notes, elsewhere, other scholars notice that Ubay is like not just some average companion, but he's like the master reciter of the Quran. And so he says, he struck me on the chest, like he punched me, he hit me in the chest, whereupon I started sweating and felt as though I was looking at Allah in fear. And then he goes on and says, this is there's a little typo there. It should say resent to me. It says MC, but I'll fix that typo later. Anyway, it was revealed in one harf, which is the singular of ahruf, but I requested Allah to make things easy on my nation, etc., etc., and then you get 7 total. So here's another version of the story where it's Ubay this time, and he has doubt and denial entering into him that he didn't even have even before he was a Muslim. And so this is huge. So again, you have multiple companions, just like David said, just completely confused about this. They're like, wait, Muhammad taught it to me like this. I'm hearing other people recite it in different ways. What's the explanation? And they get doubt, they get denial. So these problems of variations and different versions of the Quran, they have existed since the very beginning, and they cause doubt, they cause problems.
Yeah,
But
and
not sure if it
oh, go ahead.
easy.
Yeah.
Not sure if it makes things easy if they're having doubts and they're, almost killing each other because dragging each other and calling each other liars. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, this is just like I can't emphasize to you enough how much anyone who's looking at this as an outsider goes, are you serious? I mean, are you serious? They accepted this, guys. So we already heard from Umar. Umar had no idea that the Quran is being revealed in all these different ways. Umar, who eventually became the second of the rightly guided caliphs, Muhammad's revealing the Quran in all these different ways. For all these years, Umar never hears about it until after he starts seeing the differences. And here you have Ubay. What did Umar say about Ubay? That Ubay was the best of the Quran reciters among us. He's the best. Yep. This guy's the best Quran reciter. Wait a minute. You're telling me that the best Quran reciter did not know that Muhammad is revealing the Quran in 7 different ways, and no one finds this out until afterwards, and then it causes doubt, and then Muhammad's solution is, well, let me whack this guy in the chest. That'll shut him up. And that'll make him realize that I know what I'm talking about. And that's how these intellectual doubts were dealt with in 7th century Arabia. The other issue is this been a while since I was studying this, but if I recall correctly, Hisham converted to Islam like after the conquest of Mecca, which would, if that's correct, then that would mean this is like within the last 2 years. So Muhammad's been receiving revelations for decades now, sharing them with his followers. And it's not until the very end, when he's all old and about to die, that's when they start realizing, hey, we're reciting the Quran in different ways. Oh, guys, don't you know that Allah has revealed the Quran in all these different ways? And I'm just remembering now to tell you about it. Oopsie. This is insane, man.
Exactly. And so that those are 2 different versions, and like I said, there's more versions of like why the ahruf were revealed, and people might be wondering, why are we like keeping it in Arabic, this word ahruf, and we're going to get to that, because the short answer is Muslims don't know. Nobody knows. Muslims or non-Muslims, they don't know what that word means in this context. So ahruf is like a hyper literal translation is letters. Ahruf is the plural of the word harf, letters, but that's not what it means in this. It doesn't mean 7 letters. So people don't know what it means, and we're going to get to that. Here's just like, if you're interested, you want to know like what Western scholars have to say about ahruf and how do they understand it. It's basically exactly what David just said. So Shadi Nasser here notes in the transmission of the variant readings of the Quran on page 17. He says that Western scholarship did not devote much attention to the tradition of the 7 ahruf, and he goes on to talk about Noldeke, who examined the different interpretations of what was possibly meant by the 7 ahruf, and he rejected most of those. So boil it down, he says that basically what it is Muhammad's inability to accurately remember what he had recited earlier. Exactly what David was saying. So this is kind of like what the kind of outside of Islam, Western academia, what does Western scholarship have to say? That's pretty much where they chop it down to. This is where the tradition came from. And Shadi Nasser also likens it to like the chicken or the egg, and which came first. So it's like, was it the the variants that came, and then this tradition came to kind of cover it up, or is it that the tradition was there and that's what kind of explains it? He follows the view that these things came later to kind of explain the variants. Like, you can find many different traditions like that in Islam, where they were facing some sort of issue, and then people would just make up traditions to kind of justify their views. And he thinks this is just one of those examples. Another
Okay.
example of that.
Okay. So just to clarify what you're pointing out there. So Yasser Qadi said he talks about non-Muslim academics not having that red line. So
Yes.
from a Muslim perspective, from like Sheikh Yasser Qadi's perspective, he if a non-Muslim looks at the whole story, they'll go, "Oh, come on. Are you kidding me? It's obvious that there were just, if we take that hadith as authentic, it's obvious that Muhammad just didn't remember the Quran perfectly. You ended up with some differences, and then he came up with a story of why those differences are there." Right? So you could say that that's granting the authenticity of the hadith. So that's an example of this red line. It would not be open to someone like Sheikh Yasser Qadi to say, okay, Muhammad made up a story about Allah revealing it in all these different ways, because he's trying to cover up the fact that he was reciting it in different ways because he forgot it, and it became confused in his mind over time. Yasser Qadi can't grant that, because that would be Muhammad making something up about Allah revealing things in order to rescue himself. And so Yasser Qadi's not going to grant that. A Western academic would have no problem granting that. Oh, why couldn't Muhammad be making things up? So anyway, you have those kinds of issues. Even if we take the hadith seriously, then the way a Muslim is going to view the story is very different from the way a non-Muslim is going to view the story. From a non-Muslim perspective, it's obvious what happened. There's no way we're taking this seriously. But I think what you were pointing out there is, you don't even have to grant the authenticity of the hadith. A different possibility is that there were differences in the Quran that leading up to the compilation of the hadiths, and that once Muslims are realizing, hey, we have all these differences in the Quran, let's fabricate a story. Let's fabricate a story that makes sense of this. And we'll say that, oh yeah, because it was revealed in all these different kinds of ways. So basically you have multiple ways of coming at this. You could reject the hadith and say, which, by the way, if you can reject the hadith, you'd still have to grant that the hadith was produced for a reason, namely that the Quran ended up being recited in a bunch of different ways. And so they're trying to fix that. But if you grant the authenticity of the hadith, which you would if you're a good Sunni Muslim, then even that doesn't get you out of the woods, because any non-Muslim looking at this goes, that is the stupidest. In other words, it's actually worse if you take the hadith seriously, because from a non-Muslim perspective, if we believe that Muhammad actually said that and that was his excuse and justification, we have to conclude that your prophet is a liar and a narcissist who couldn't admit that he was wrong, and who would even blame God for his own mistakes here. And that's just, how are we supposed to take this guy seriously anymore? Whereas if you say, yeah, it was a later companion who lied, you still have to deal with the differences in the Quran, but at least it wouldn't make your prophet an obvious liar and an obvious narcissist.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's, yeah. And you know what I've heard Muslims say, like I've heard Farid say, in response to this, he goes, "Oh yeah, so Western scholars, they kind of just chop it up to Muhammad forgetting things." And his takeaway from that is, well, they're still admitting that the origin of these things are coming from Muhammad. So he thinks that that's like a win for him.
It's a win.
It's like
winning.
like they're literally. Oh, man. So scholar teachers Ashankiti, who we've mentioned before, who briefly, the conclusion I've reached is that this is just
nearly 40 different opinions concerning this. And so to prepare for his debate on the sciences of the Quran,
great debate with Nabil and Muslim in that debate, I forget who it was now, but now but again, they have no idea what it means. There's up to 40 different opinions. And here's Yasser Qadi, his canonization, we're talking 10th century on, that was read. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's always, hey, what about, shut up, or we'll lock you up or hit you or beat you.
7 qira'at that he chooses. So you might think, and only the unlearned.
And go ahead and do it one more time, just because I still hear this.
And this is
what's going on there. What's going on there? They're going to pretend to be completely confident, and they're going to say, "Oh, yes, this just refers to dialects. Everyone knows that." They know Muslim. One, they never want you to know about it. They never want you to know about the ahruf. That's what they'll. How in the name of